This investigation of Planned Parenthood is based on false premises, one after another after another. It's time to stop wasting time, get on with meaningful work, and stop picking on women and trying to take their choice away. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gar.
You're just a small bump unborn informant you brought to life. Might be left with my hair, but you'll have your mother's eyes. I'll hold your body in my hands, be as gentle as I can, but for now you're a scan of my unmade plans. A small bump informant you brought to life. I'll whisper quietly, I'll give you nothing but truth. If you're not inside me, I'll put my future in you. 'Cause you are my one and only. You can wrap your fingers round my thumb and hold me. You are my one and only. You can wrap your fingers round my thumb and hold me tight, and you will be alright. Ooh, you're just a small bump unborn. You'll grow into your skin with a smile like hers and a dimple your chin. Fingernails the size of a half grain of rice, with eyelids closed to be soon open wide. A small bump informants, you'll open your eyes. I'll hold you tightly, I'll tell you nothing but truth. If you're not inside me, my future in you. 'Cause you are my one and only. You can wrap your fingers round my thumb and hold me tight. 'Cause you are my one and only. You can wrap your fingers round my thumb and hold me tight, and you will be alright. And you can leave me with your tiny feet. When you're half asleep, I'll leave you be right in front of me for a couple weeks, so I can keep you safe. 'Cause you are my one and only. You can wrap your fingers round my thumb and hold me tight.
My name's Nicole Stipp. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a tax-paying constituent. I create jobs and I issue a lot of 1099s. And I have had an abortion. It didn't have a heartbeat, it didn't have a face, it didn't have feelings, it was a clump of cells and tissue. I can also promise you that had I been forced to see this pregnancy through, I would have done what women have done for all the decades people like you have been trying to stop abortions. I would have gone to any length, medically overseen or not, to end my pregnancy. I am just like the other 1 in 4 women that have had abortions. We do it because we cannot provide a life for children while we work for financial stability. We do it because we don't want to bear children and haven't yet had our IUDs or surgeries to prevent it.
And members of the committee, just so there is no confusion, let me say that I am not a research scientist. However, no one knows more about life with Down syndrome than I do. Whatever you learn today, please remember this. I am a man with Down syndrome, and my life is worth living.
We had gotten a phone call from our nurse, and she said, the test came back, everything's fine, the baby's healthy. We had a sonogram the next morning. We went in there, thinking everything was great. We were just gonna get to see the baby moving around and, see all the fingers and toes. And so we waited about 45 minutes, and Matt and I were both like, what's going on? We've never had to wait this long. So after a while, the doctor came to the door and called our name, and it was the doctor with the nurse. I'd never seen the doctor before, so we were both just like, what's going on? I remember walking back that hallway and thinking, I actually said to him, I said, you're scaring me. What's going on? So we went into this little room, and I remember that I sat down, and the nurse was holding a box of tissues, and it's kind of when you know something's going on. And he said that they were wrong, that they gave us the wrong test results, and that your baby has trisomy 21. I just remember looking at those Kleenexes thinking, I'm not gonna cry. I'm not going to let them think that this is going to destroy me, because it will not. And the doctor said, we really want you to go see a specialist to discuss your options. And I said, I don't know what you mean by options, but if you mean abortion, there's no discussing that. And so we are going to keep our baby. I think the proof that people are more than their diagnosis is my daughter. My Emerson is so much more than we were told she was going to be, more than my highest expectations, more than my greatest dreams. I'm thankful for the opportunity to have learned so much from her.
Well, I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world that have disease from their parents, that have no chance in the world to be a human being, practically. Delinquents, prisoners, all sorts of things just marked when they're born. That, to me, is the greatest sin that people can commit.
Imagine there's an organization that claims to stand for one thing, but actually stands for another. Imagine this organization calls itself a healthcare provider, but it's not involved in preserving life, it's involved in ending it. And imagine that you help finance this organization, whether you want to or not. Well, you don't have to imagine. This organization exists, and it has a name with which you are very familiar. It calls itself Planned Parenthood, and the deception begins right there. Planned Parenthood doesn't help people plan for parenthood, it helps people escape it. And that's only the start of its deceptions. Planned Parenthood tells you it's one of the nation's leading women's healthcare providers, but it provides very little healthcare. It tells you it provides adoption referrals, but the only adoption advice it is likely to offer is Google it. Most deceptive of all, Planned Parenthood tells you that abortions are a small part of what it does, but it performs more abortions than anyone else in America. Here are the facts. The folks who run Planned Parenthood boast that they provide life-saving cancer screenings. And they do, just not that many of them, less than 2% of the nation's screenings each year. They talk about providing breast exams. They do, but just not that many of them. Again, less than 2% of the nation's total. They talk about providing ultrasounds, but the last thing they want to do is show a pregnant woman an image of her growing child. So they don't. The ultrasound is only for Planned Parenthood's use, to better facilitate patients' abortions. In other words, abortion, not women's health, is Planned Parenthood's reason for being. Every year, it does more than a third of all abortions in America, over 321,000 of them. That's equivalent to every inhabitant of St. Louis or Pittsburgh wiped out every year. That's over 880 abortions every day. An abortion every 98 seconds. And while the number of total abortions in the United States is going down, Planned Parenthood's market share of abortions has increased from 23% in 2006 to 34% in 2016. So when Planned Parenthood says it's devoted to women's reproductive rights, what it means is it's devoted to aborting as many babies as possible. And here's the biggest deception of them all. Planned Parenthood would like you to believe that abortion is only 3% of the total services they provide. 3%. Doesn't sound like very much, does it? But here's how they get to that 3%. They count every discrete clinical interaction as its own service. What is a discrete clinical interaction? Pretty much anything you do from the moment you walk into one of their clinics. I'll give you an example. Let's say a woman comes into Planned Parenthood for one service, an abortion. Before providing an abortion, Planned Parenthood has to confirm that the woman is pregnant, right? So they administer another service, a pregnancy test. That's 2 services. Then, after the abortion, on your way out the door, they hand you a prescription. That's 3 services. And there are many other services provided during the abortion process that Planned Parenthood claims as discrete clinical interactions. In this way, Planned Parenthood is able to rack up 9.5 million of these so-called services each year. Divide the number of abortions, 321,000, by 9.5 million, and you get 3%. Even the Washington Post, a Planned Parenthood ally, declared this 3% figure very misleading. Rich Lowry of National Review nicely illustrated this phony statistic. It would be like Major League Baseball saying they sell 20 million hot dogs, but only play 2,430 games, so baseball is only 0.012% of what they do. So why does Planned Parenthood engage in all these deceptions? Well, as they say, follow the money. According to federal law, the United States government is not permitted to spend taxpayer money on abortions, but Planned Parenthood receives over $500 million a year in federal funding. Not for abortions, mind you, but for those other discrete clinical interactions. Over the last 10 years, its annual clientele has dropped 23%, almost a quarter. But during this time, its taxpayer funding has skyrocketed from $336 million in 2006 to $543 million in 2016. The reality is, just about everything about Planned Parenthood is a deception. Its purpose, its funding, its very name. That's why Planned Parenthood's biggest enemy isn't conservatives or religious people. Its biggest enemy is truth. I'm Lila Rose, founder and president of Live Action for Prager University.
I have to tell you that it was a great privilege when I was told that I would receive this award. I admire Margaret Sanger enormously. Her courage, her tenacity, her vision.
I'm forever Hey, we're doing a pop quiz question right now. Do you guys know what the #1 cause of death in the United States is?
Heart disease?
Abortion.
I don't think that's true.
No.
I don't.
What's the #1 cause of death in the United States?
I don't know.
Traffic accidents? Speeding?
Heart attacks?
Abortion.
Abortion?
The #1 cause of death in the United States.
My
Good to
body,
know.
my right.
What's the #1 cause of death?
Cancer and heart disease.
Abortion.
Yeah, if you consider an embryo a sentient being.
Your guess is gun violence.
Sure, gun violence.
It's abortion.
Abortion.
Kills over 1 million Americans every year. If 1 million women had an abortion, does that not count that was a loss of life?
Well, I'm gonna take a guess and say that you do think it is.
Is it not?
I do not think so.
Is what's the #1 cause of death in the United States every year?
I'm going to say violence against women.
You are correct. It's abortion. That is violence against women.
It is. It most certainly is.
So you're pro-life. Are you pro-life?
No, I'm pro-choice.
This is InfoWars.
Abortion accounts for over 1 million deaths every year in the United States. It's the #1 killer in the U.S. What's the #1 killer for Black Americans every year?
Hypertension.
Yes, cardiac disease. Heart disease.
Abortion.
No.
No.
Most abortions are performed on healthy women that are able to have the baby, they just don't want it.
Okay, that's eye-opening.
We're doing a pop quiz. What's the #1 cause of death in the United States every year?
I'm not sure.
Abortion.
No comment.
Do you think there should be any limit?
No, yeah, I do think there should be a limit once the baby's developed certain, I don't know.
Maybe when it has a heartbeat?
No. I think
No? So what classifies someone as being dead?
not having a heartbeat, but
So wouldn't that classify when they have a heartbeat as them being alive?
yes.
So it is murder.
No, it's not murder.
What is the #1 cause of death in the United States every year?
Abortion.
It is abortion! Hi, sweetie.
We hold these to be self-evident. Fourscore and 7. 3,000 miles an American army defense has made war upon the United States. I wish I could contribute to the magnitude. We can't reach those big guns.
I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world. Disease from their parents that have no chance in the world to be a human being, practically. Delinquents, prisoners, all sorts of things just marked when they're born. That, to me, is the greatest sin that people can commit.
He said, you have two choices. You either get out or you get an abortion.
I thought that a baby would mess up my life and he would marry me with a child.
We went into the schools with sex education programs that we knew would increase the sexual activity and therefore the pregnancy rate.
I lived in a crappy apartment and I drove a crappy car and I didn't even have a job. Who was I to raise a child?
As the nurse was performing the ultrasound, I watched her and she was looking at my baby on the monitor. And I asked her, I said, "Can I see my baby?" And she took the monitor literally with her hands and turned it away from me.
And I turned to look at the screen and thought, that looks like a baby. Well, she got very upset and yelled at me and said, "Turn around, don't you dare look at that."
I did not believe that it was a baby inside of me at the time.
I was told it was a blob of tissue.
They explained it to me that it was a blob, that it wasn't anything yet.
But I needed to have this abortion as soon as possible before this blob of tissue turns into a baby.
And she told me that it wasn't even a baby yet, that it was just a clump of cells.
This is the pregnancy expert saying, there it is, you're pregnant. And then grab her by the bony part of the elbow and squeeze. Do you have your money? Can you do it today?
You write your check for $300 and all your problems are solved. Wish somebody told me what really happens.
I bought the lie. I now know she didn't show me my baby. She just showed me a dot on the screen so that I would go through with the abortion.
When he finished abortion number 1, he ran across the hall. He didn't stop to do a surgical scrub. He did not stop to do operative notes. He went across the hall, changed his gloves, and started abortion number 2.
And a very motherly type woman put her arm around me and walked me down the hallway towards the room.
I knew what I was doing was not all right, and I knew it wasn't going to be over soon. I knew I had to live with this decision once again for the rest of my life.
He began to work on me, and I remember feeling horrifying cramps, and it was worse than they had ever told me.
They turned on the vacuum machine, and it was a loud, horrible noise.
The sound of that vacuum machine, I'll never forget that noise.
The awful sound of the vacuum extracting the baby.
The sound of this machine was like this ghoulish generator, and then the pain hit me.
I literally felt like my soul was being sucked out that day.
It was excruciatingly painful, and I almost passed out.
And immediately, the tears just started rolling down my eyes.
And I remember laying there crying and wishing that I could stop it, but it was too late.
They sucked the life out of my body that I knew I'd never be able to get back.
And I knew right then and there I had made the biggest mistake of my life.
I heard the sound of the vacuum, and all of a sudden I saw a splattering of the blood, and I knew my baby had to be in that jar.
And that memory burned in my mind because I realized that was the only remains of the child that I had had inside of me.
And I heard one nurse say to the other nurse, "It's twins." And then she took the trash bag and she tied it in a knot and she walked out with the twins in that trash bag.
I was hysterical. I was crying, and for the first time, maybe because I was heavily medicated, I felt free to call out and say, you know, it was my baby, it was my baby.
I knew deep inside of me that what I had done was take the life of my own child.
That opened my eyes to what abortion really was, and I knew that when I walked out of that abortion facility that day that I would never have anything to do with abortion ever again.
All the feminists said is my body, my right. This was going to help me. Why didn't I feel that way?
They said my life would get back to normal again. It's never been back to normal again.
The grief and trauma and shame that we as women deal with this choice, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy.
I had nightmares. I became depressed.
I wanted to meet them. I wanted to see what they would have looked like, their voices.
It affected me as a woman, as a mother, as a wife.
There's not enough tissue in my office to handle the tears of the women when they realize that they may have killed the only baby that they will have.
The doctor told me that because of all of that scarring in my uterus from the abortions, that I had been left infertile and that most likely I would not become pregnant again.
I was 16 when I had my abortion. I'm 48 now, and I'm still coming to terms with the fact that I'm never going to have children the normal way.
I lay on the table and started thinking, how am I going to tell my husband that I'm not going to be able to have children with him? It was the reality of knowing that the only 3 children I would ever bear, I killed.
I would just encourage any woman that found themselves in the same situation.
that they would really think twice about it, and that they wouldn't let fear lead them to make a decision that they would regret the rest of their life.
You don't want to live a life of regrets, wondering what your child looked like, wishing you could hear their laughter, because one day you will experience that if you choose to give your child life.
There's life and joy for everyone in America, and that should be from fertilization to natural death. And so I invite you today and always, it's very important to just choose life.
My name is Jennifer Christie.
Up until 4.5 years ago, sign language interpreter Jennifer Christie was a wife and mother of 4. But Christie's life underwent a radical change one January winter.
I'm here tonight to represent the 32,000 women a year who become pregnant after rape, and the 75% of us who give our children life.
As she testifies and shares publicly today, Jennifer Christie is a survivor of and mother from rape.
As hard as it is to talk about, can you share with us what happened? Take us back to January of 2014.
Okay. So I've shared this a lot, and it has not gotten easier. Okay.
Jennifer tells us she was staying at a hotel alone while traveling for work. On the last day of her 2-week trip, her job let out early because of snowfall. She went back to her hotel.
I walked up to my room and didn't know that I was being followed. I couldn't hear anything. It was very windy, and I had my scarf up and all that. And I got my door open, and I dropped everything on the floor and turned around to close my door, and there was a man in my doorway. I thought, with the weather, I thought maybe his car broke down, or maybe he needed to use my phone or something, and all this kind of went through my mind in like a second. And then he kind of gave me a strange smile and punched me in the head.
Jennifer tried to fight as the man proceeded to assault and rape her. She eventually passed out. Jennifer then awoke to a woman's scream when she discovered she was wearing only a scrap of clothing and laying outside in a stairwell near the dumpster.
But I remember trying to move and realizing that I was very hurt. And I tried to pick myself up, and I looked at my hands, and there was blood on them, and my nails were all cracked and broken, and I just remembered fighting.
Jennifer was taken to the hospital and treated for fractured ribs, broken fingers, a brain bleed, and severe internal damage. She's since undergone multiple surgeries. As a few weeks passed and her body began to heal, Jennifer and her husband decided she'd move forward with work to keep herself preoccupied. She left for a business trip on a cruise when she got very sick.
One of the head doctors came in to me and she said, we're going to need to give you an IV. Is there any chance you could be pregnant?
Christie immediately thought no, her husband had a vasectomy.
And then I stopped and I thought, and for the first time out loud, I said, I was raped, and it's just an ugly, ugly word. And I just had this feeling in my stomach, and I said, you might want to test me.
The pregnancy test was positive, so the cruise ship made an emergency stop in Colombia for an ultrasound.
On that screen, I saw this tiny little pea. And this was the darkest time in my life, and I, for the first time since the assault, looking at that little dot on the screen, I just felt something come alive in me again. And I felt hope and joy and light. And I remember thinking, okay, I couldn't protect myself. I fought and I tried, but there was nothing I could do, but I could protect that baby. And it was my baby.
And when you told your husband, how did he respond to the news?
I called him and I said, are you sitting down? And he said, what's wrong? I said, I'm pregnant. And there was just a second of silence, and he said, okay. I said, okay, what? Okay, like what is, I need more from you, okay, expand. And he said, sweetheart, he said, this is a gift. He said, this is something beautiful. It's from something so painful and terrible for us. He said, we love babies. And I said, yeah, we love babies. And he said, we can do this.
With a supportive husband by her side, Jennifer welcomed a son into the world. Now, her very youngest, as she calls him, is an integral part of the family.
He is just this bright spot. He's just joy and laughter and silliness, as you know. He's 3 now, so which they happen to be, but even when he was a baby, he was just nothing but, you know, big dimpled smiles and all kinds of joy, and the kids just adore him.
I asked Jennifer, a devout Christian, how her faith in God has held up throughout the journey these past 4 years.
When I tell my story, people who are not believers will say, well, where was your God when that happened? You know, and where was your God then? And I think my God was all over that. My God was all over my story. My God was in the fact that I was being dragged away from the scene and would probably be killed, and, you know, someone stepped in and interrupted me being dragged away, and my life was spared. My God was in the fact that I was left in the snow, which controlled the swelling in my brain, and I'm still here. My God was in the fact that I have this child who people would consider, you know, something horrific, but has been such a joy and kept me going, gave me a reason to want to press on.
Jennifer, we hear often, even from people who identify as pro-life, this excuse for abortions in the cases of rape. People who make this exception, saying it's not fair for the mother. This child would be a reminder of the trauma of rape. But Jennifer, what's been your experience?
Not that at all. I feel like a broken record saying my son is healing, but I can't imagine getting through the last few years without him, without having his light and his life to look forward to. I've never looked at him and seen anything but him. What we're going to be able to tell our son one day is that none of us would be the people that we are today without you.
There he is.
Dr. Boyd, Southwestern Women's Options. How may I help you?
Hi, I was hoping to schedule an abortion.
All right. What was the day of your last period?
It was like the middle of May, so like May 15th, probably.
All right, so it looks like we can do this for you, but it is going to be a week-long procedure. So if you're able to come next week, and we start this on the 12th, I'm going to be looking at a fee of $8,000.
Oh.
Now, are you still in your chair?
Oh, just barely.
Just barely. But what you also need to keep in mind is that every week that goes by, the fee goes up by another $1,000.
Well, we get is at your 27 weeks. Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Yep. So you're about a month. Yeah, actually, you're about a month off in how you thought.
Oh, wow.
You were.
To insert the injection, it's going straight into the sac and to the pregnancy. Okay, it's bottom down. It'll insert through the baby's bottom. Okay.
Okay,
if
so
it's the head down, it'll be inserted through the head, through the cranium. If we can't catch it early enough, which it has happened. If you're feeling pressure, it's moving down or something coming out, the pregnancy coming out, then you'll want to unlock the door to the hotel room, get your cell phone, and just sit on the toilet. You don't have to look at anything. You don't have to clean anything up or nothing. Just be on the phone with us, and you could stay on the phone with us until the doctor and nurse get there. Okay?
Oh, good. So just go in the toilet if I'm having labor. Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And what if it does come out when I'm on the toilet?
Just, you don't gotta look down. You don't gotta do anything. The doctor and nurse will come take care of it. If you feel like it's too much to see any of it, then do not let yourself look at it. Okay.
Okay.
If you want to cover yourself, even with like a towel or something.
Okay.
Go ahead.
If you're one of those lucky people that has no pain with contractions, and all of a sudden you're like, something's coming out, you sit on the toilet.
Okay.
And you call us, and you unlock the hotel room, and we come in and we take care of you.
If I'm on the toilet,
yeah,
and it pops out and it's in the toilet,
yeah,
what do I do?
You would just sit there and you would stay there.
Okay.
And you would not move until we come and get you.
Okay. I mean, I don't have to worry about taking it out or anything.
You don't have to clean anything. You don't have to do anything.
What are we talking about? at the basic root. I want you to imagine that you're an obstetrician gynecologist like me. And I want you to imagine that you are a pro-choice obstetrician gynecologist like I used to be. Your patient today is 17 years old. She's 20 weeks pregnant. Now, if you could see her baby, which is very easy to do on an ultrasound, her baby would be as big as the length of your hand, from head to rump, from your middle finger to your wrist. That big. She's been feeling her baby kick for the last 2 weeks, but now she's asleep on an operating room table, and you're there to help her with her problem. You walk into an operating room scrubbed and gowned, and to the right of the table, of the operating table, there's a smaller table where your instruments are located. And the first thing you're going to reach for is a suction catheter. This is a 12 French suction catheter. I used to have a 14, but it disappeared. It's about 9 inches long. It's clear plastic. And I want you to picture yourself putting this up through the cervix, into the, through the vagina, through the cervix, and into the uterus, and then instruct your circulating nurse to turn on the suction machine. Now, what you'll see is pale yellow fluid running through the tubing into the machine. That was the amniotic fluid that was there to protect the baby. Now, if she were only, and I told you, a 20-week baby, head to rump, not counting the legs, is the middle of your finger to your wrist. If she were 12 weeks pregnant or less, measured from her last period, her baby would be, a 12-week baby is the width of your hand, head to rump, not counting the legs. And if she were 12 weeks pregnant or less, you pretty much could do the entire abortion with this one instrument. But babies this big don't fit through catheters this size. When you're done with that, you reach for your SOFR clamp, so you don't have to imagine when I brought one along. Now, I will pass this around. I will pass around both these instruments. Everybody put up your right hand. I promise to give Dr. Levitino back his instruments at the end of the evening, all right? I don't want these to disappear. You can't get them. They're hard to get. It's really interesting. I went through airline security this morning. It gets them every time. Pulled my bag over. He went right for it, and he pulls it out, and he's looking at it, and he's going, "What is it?" So I said, "You really want to know?" And he said, "Yeah," and I told him what it is. I'm going to tell you what it is. You get your SOFR clamp. It's about 13 inches long. It's stainless steel. And the business end, when you get a hold of this, look at it. It's about 2.5 inches long and 1/2 inch wide. And when you get this in your hands and look at it, you're going to feel it's a heavy clamp. And there are rows of sharp teeth. This is a grasping instrument. When it gets a hold of something, it does not let go. A D&E abortion, a second trimester D&E abortion, is a blind procedure. You can't see anything. It's all done by feel. So picture yourself, and I'm serious, picture yourself putting this up through the uterus. Be really careful, because the walls are thin and soft, and it is easy as pie to go right through them. Then grasp with the instrument. Grab hold of anything you can. You can't see what you're doing, just grab something. And feel yourself pulling, and I mean hard. And out pops the leg that big, which you put down on the table. Reach in again. Grab blindly. Pull hard. Out comes an arm the same length, which you put down on the table. And reach in with this instrument again and again and tear out the spine, the intestines, and the heart and lungs. Now, the head on a baby that size is about the size of a plum. And again, you can't see it. You have a pretty good idea you're there if you've got a hold of something and your fingers are spread as far as they'll go. You know you did it right if you crush down on the clamp and white material runs out of the cervix. That was the baby's brains. Now you can pull out skull pieces. If you have a bad day like I had a lot of times, sometimes a little face comes back and stares back at you. Congratulations. You just successfully performed a second trimester D&E abortion. You just affirmed her right to choose. You just made $800 cash in 15 minutes.
Kind of clash. So I'm hoping to get your views on the consciousness or lack thereof of a human fetus and how that's impacted your views on abortion, whatever they are, and any legislation surrounding that.
Thank you. I'm very... Okay, so the first question is, do I have an answer for that that's a good enough answer to actually reveal? No, I don't, but I can flail about a little bit around it. Abortion is clearly wrong. I don't think anybody debates that. You wouldn't recommend that someone that you love have one. Okay, now, having clarified that, that mere statement doesn't eliminate the complexity of the situation. The first question is should everything wrong be illegal? That's a tough question. Everything that's wrong isn't illegal. Then there's the additional complication of the difference, let's say, in gravity regarding the problem in relationship to men and women. And we don't know how to deal with that. Having said that, I would say that it's actually the wrong question. There's something Leonard Cohen said once. He said that in a massacre, there's no decent place to stand. And what he meant by that was, sometimes you're where there is no good decision left. No matter what you do, it's wrong. So then the question is, how did you get there? Well, let's say you're in a position where you are inclined to seek an abortion. The question is, how did you get there? Now, we have a lot to straighten out about the sexual relationships between men and women in the modern world. They're bent and warped and demented out of shape. One of the things I see with young people, for example, is that they will engage in sexual acts with one another that they would not talk about with one another. I mean, couples will do that for that matter, like married couples will do that, but they're married, that's a different story. It seems to me that if you are willing to engage in a sexual act with someone with whom you would not discuss that act, you probably put the cart before the horse. So, the discussion regarding the legality of abortion is nested inside a larger discussion about the morality of abortion, and that's nested inside a larger discussion about the proper place of sexuality in human behavior. And to me, that's the level at which the problem needs to be addressed. Now, I don't have the answer to that, because the old answer was get married. That's a good answer. And it's an answer that people should still listen to. But we'll put that aside momentarily. I had a client at one point who was, I don't know, she was probably, I'm going to disguise her in a variety of different ways. She was 27, 20, thereabouts, had come from a relatively conservative background, quite a timid, fearful person, and also not very well, not sophisticated in relationship to relationships. And she'd never had sex. Well, there's a bunch of things she'd never done. Well, the answer from me to her wasn't continue to be timid about everything, because that wasn't working out for her. She needed to go have some adventures. Now, sexual adventures, like other adventures, are dangerous. And so you have to be very careful when you encourage people to go out and have adventures. But too much timidity and caution also constitutes a pathway to perdition, let's say. You can't just say to people in the modern world, well, no sex till you're married, unless you're going to get married when you're very young, and perhaps you should. I don't know about that. But I don't think that we're mature enough as a culture to have a serious discussion about sexual propriety, especially in the aftermath of the birth control pill. And we seriously need to do that, and we haven't. And so I think the eternal debate about abortion, horrible as it is it's the surface manifestation of a much deeper problem. Now, I talked a little bit today about the utility of marriage, like the spiritual utility of marriage. And that's something that I think we're so immaturely cynical as a culture. Like we're not wise enough to look at an institution like marriage and to really think about what it means and what it signifies. It signifies a a place that people can tie the ropes of their lives together so that they're stronger. It signifies a place where people can tell the truth to one another. It signifies a place where sexuality can properly be integrated into life. That's no easy task. It's a place where children, at least in principle, can be put first and foremost, as they should be once they exist. And so there's a much broader discussion that has to happen, I think, before any concentration on the legality of abortion is liable to get anywhere at all. That's what it looks like to me. So that's the best I can do with that question.
A different social standard that I think helps move the needle.
I think you're right in a way, because I do think that as casual as relationships are becoming, because you can just Tinder someone and say, I'm down the street, yeah, I'll meet you out. There is no like gravitas to having and wooing a partner anymore. And it's maybe not so much the fact that like it's cheap sex, but I think all the rules of like dating and you know, being chivalrous have gone out the window. So maybe people are like, I'm not gonna marry that guy.
I just don't like that. I don't like the idea where it feels like it's up to the woman to make you be a gentleman. Like, you know, that should be ingrained in you just as things are ingrained in us. And I feel like there's a lot of pressure on the woman.
That's true. Two things have happened. In order to get easy access to sex, we got to get it from somebody.
What?
Yes,
so now, if you easy and accessible, that's it. So your standards have been lowered as a whole. But the reason women's standards have been lowered is because men have deceived you. You have been deceived and you have been put, we done head faked you to death, to where now you've lowered yourself just so you can say you with somebody. Because like he said, you used to have to get some flowers and go, and women still would love to have that. But now that's not a requirement. It's swiping right, swiping left. It's you have no contact. You standing there texting each other. Until the standards are put back in place, we gonna keep stepping over your little 2-foot-high fence. Because if that's all the gate you got guarding your yard, we gonna step over the 2-foot fence and we gonna play in your grass. You know what? And when we get through, we gonna step over the
delayed gratification back.
Wait
a second. I just balled it up. I just stepped on it. I put it in trash. I pulled it out. Then I tore it in half. And you mean to tell me I can pick the dollar up, I can wipe it off, and I can put some tape around it, and it's still worth $1? Then why, if this dollar doesn't lose its worth or its value, then why do you feel like you've lost your worth of value? Because many of you feel like you've been stepped on, you feel like you've been pushed aside, you feel like you've been abandoned, you feel like you've been talked about, you feel like you've been abused, like someone took from you, someone hurt you, somebody took advantage of you, and deep down inside your core, you feel like you've lost some of your value. And I am here to tell you today that this dollar still has worth and value, because there are some men years ago who put value over this life and said that no matter what happens to it, it can still be taped back together, it can still be wiped off. And I am here to tell you that you were created and you're born and you're here and you have life and you have purpose and you have value. And though you've gone through some hard times and though you've experienced some depression and you might be wanting to hurt yourself and you might want to give up, I am here to tell you still got worth and value. And there is nothing that can happen that can take your worth and your value away. So what you gotta do now is you gotta pick yourself up. You gotta dust yourself off and you gotta keep moving.
I did very unexpectedly get pregnant, and that wasn't something that I planned at all. As nervous as I was telling him, because I knew how he felt, I really still just thought he would in the end be okay with it. Like, I thought that he was going to be like, oh my gosh, that's not what, you know, was the plan and what have you, but I thought that he would be okay with it. But he wasn't. He wasn't okay with it at all. I mean, he said, you need to have an abortion. He said, you can't have the baby. And he said, I'll kill myself. I can't have another kid. I'll kill myself. I had never seen that out of him at all, so I didn't know what to say but to agree with him and say, sure, like, okay. Like, I felt like I can't tell anybody about this. I can't talk with anybody about it. I need to figure this out on my own, was kind of how I felt, because I didn't want anyone to know that I was even thinking of that. And then he left and I went to a Super Bowl party. In the back of my head, that was all I could think about. And any moment that I was alone, that was all I could think about. It was consuming. There was no, I didn't know how to even make the decision, I guess. I didn't know what was I considering? Like, what? I didn't even know how to think about it.
Who will I become? I want to be someone who helps someone else. What will be my name? You named me inconvenience. You named me no one. You took away my breath before I breathed it on my own. You stripped me of my life, and then you left me all alone. You named me no one, but I wanted to be known. I am beauty, I am love, I am a girl sent from above. I am laughter, I am joy, I am a treasure, baby boy. You named me no one, but I wanted to be known. Who will sing my song? Lyrics of nowhere places and unseen faces. Who will be my voice? Voice of desperation. I am someone. You took away my breath before I breathed it on my own. You stripped me of my life, and then you left me all alone. You named me no one, but I wanted to be known. I am beauty, I am love, I am a girl sent from above. I am laughter, I am joy, I am a treasure, baby boy. You named me no one, but I wanted to be. Who will sing my song? Who will be my voice? Who will save my life? My life is not a choice. Is it you? Is it you? Please tell them I am beauty, I am love, I am a girl sent from above. I am laughter, I am joy, I am a treasure, baby boy. wanted to be known. Find someone.
You know, clicked, and I knew that all along it was what I wanted to do, that I needed to have the strength to do it. There was no nothing after that. Like, I knew, I was like, I'm keeping the baby, I'm having her. Everything that we do as a team, we're together pretty much unless I'm at work.
I'll race you.
Being a single mom is challenging. The day-to-day stuff, it's exhausting, but that's okay. I would do anything for her. It's so fun too to see Christmas through her eyes. To have a child for Christmas, it makes it so much more fun and meaningful.
Who goes in the manger at Christmas? Do you remember?
Jesus! A lot of the really simple things that we enjoyed growing up, you know, from Christmas lights to baking cookies to like making crafts, like those kinds of things are really what we spend a lot of time doing.
2 stockings. Okay. Because on Christmas we do 2 stockings.
I'm really lucky to have her. She definitely brings out the best in me, and I just can't imagine life any other way. And she's brought me closer to Jesus, and that's a blessing as well. And I think that she does that for other people too. Being there for each other is the most important thing. We have each other no matter what.
Yeah. Do not adjust your screens. My hair, in fact, is awesome. It's pink. It's time that I talk about abortion. God, I love this topic because it makes people lose their fucking minds. Chill, fam. Chill. But you're killing a baby. Once and for all. No, you're fucking not. It's just a lump of flesh. Gross. It's not cutting down a tree. It's just digging up a seed. But it's an aborted seed. So is every watermelon seed you ever spit out into a plant. Let's be serious for a second. The only argument is that you're killing a baby. Even as I'm saying it, it does sound nasty and horrible. The fuck? I'm here to tell you no. No, you are not. It's not a baby yet. It's just baby batter. It's not cooked. But in the 16th and 3/3 trimester. Isn't that where I get the train to go to Hogwarts? But Nicole, it has features like a human. That's because it will be a baby if we keep letting it go. Right now, it's just ingredients mixing. Can it talk? Nope. Does it cry? Nope. Are my in-laws sure I'm gonna kill it if I don't do exactly what they say all of the time? Nuh-uh. Then it's not a baby. My hair is making a necklace. It's a hair necklace.
We do an awful lot of lying to women in our society. And I think that's a better answer to your question, because I think the data indicates this too, that...
what kind of lies do you mean, Jordan?
That career is the most important thing in life, and is most likely to be the case that way for men and for women. I think it is important for more men than for women. Because women take the primary role for very early child rearing. But it's clearly the case, as far as I can tell, that for most people, and the statistics bear this out, that family is by far the most important commitment that people make in their lives. And I think we lie to 18 to 19-year-old women non-stop, especially in universities and educational institutions.
That's a minute, by the way, sorry.
By telling them that career is going to be the fundamental purpose, give the fundamental purpose to their life. And for most people, that's simply not the case, nor should it be.
You wouldn't know it by looking at me today, but in August of 1977, I also survived a saline infusion abortion. And as Gianna shared, that saline infusion abortion involves injecting a toxic salt solution into the amniotic fluid surrounding the preborn child. The intent of that toxic salt solution is to scald the child to death from the outside in. For days, I soaked in that toxic salt solution, and on the 5th day of the procedure, my biological mother, who was a 19-year-old college student, delivered me after her labor was induced. I should have been delivered dead that day as a successful abortion. In 2013, I learned through contact with my biological mother's family that not only was this abortion forced upon her against her will at the age of 19, but also that it was my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, a nurse, who delivered me in this final step of the abortion procedure at St. Luke's Hospital in Sioux City, Iowa. Unfortunately, I also learned that when my grandmother realized that the abortion had not succeeded in ending my life, she demanded that I be left to die. I may never know how exactly 2 nurses who were on staff that day found out about me, but what I do know is that their willingness to fight for medical care to be provided to me ultimately sustained my life. And I know where children like me were left to die at St. Luke's Hospital. I met a nurse there who delivered a child much like me in 1976. She delivered a little boy after a failed saline infusion abortion. But she followed her superior's orders, and she placed him there in a utility closet in a bucket of formaldehyde to be picked up later as medical waste after he was left there to die alone. A bucket of formaldehyde in a utility closet was meant to be my fate after I survived that abortion attempt. I weighed a little less than 3 pounds when I survived. I suffered from jaundice, severe respiratory problems, and seizures for an extended period of time. And one of the first notations in my medical records by a doctor after I survived is that I looked like I was about 31 weeks gestational age when I was delivered. Despite the miracle of my survival, the doctor's prognosis for my life was very poor initially. My adoptive parents were told that I would suffer from multiple disabilities throughout my life. Yet here I am today, perfectly healthy. Yet I know it isn't just how abortion ends the life of children like me that isn't talked about in today's world. It's also not discussed what happens to children like me who live. I can tell you we are your friend, your neighbor, your coworker, and you would likely never guess by passing us on the street that we survived what we did. In my work as the founder of the Abortion Survivors Network, I have had contact with 203 of these other survivors. Letters from some of those survivors have been submitted to this committee. I'm here today to share my story to not only highlight the horror of abortion taking place at Planned Parenthood, but to give a voice to other survivors like me, and most importantly, to give a name, a face, and a voice to the hundreds of thousands of children who will have their lives ended by Planned Parenthood this year alone. As you consider the horrors of what happens at Planned Parenthood each day, I would urge you to remember my story and Gianna's too. We may not have survived abortions at Planned Parenthood, but the expectation for our lives to be ended by abortion are the very same as those who do lose their lives there. And I have long believed that if my birth mother's abortion would have taken place at a Planned Parenthood, I would not be here today. Completing over 300,000 abortions a year provides them with the experience to make sure that failures like me don't exist. As a fellow American and as a fellow human being, I deserve the same right to life, the same equal protection under the law as each and every one of you. Yet we live in a time where not only do such protections not exist, but my own tax dollars and yours go to fund an organization that has perfected the very thing that was meant to end my life. And this must end.
My name is Gianna Jessen, and I would like to thank you so much for the opportunity to testify here today. My biological mother was 7.5 months pregnant when she went to a Planned Parenthood and was advised, and they advised her to have a late-term saline abortion. This method of abortion burns the baby inside and out, blinding and suffocating the child, who is then born dead, usually within 24 hours. And there should be a photo there. Yes, this is what I survived. Instead of dying, after 18 hours of being burned in my mother's womb, I was delivered alive in an abortion clinic in Los Angeles on April the 6th, 1977. You can see a photo as well of my medical records. My medical records state, born alive during saline abortion, 6 a.m. Ha! Victory! Thankfully, The abortionist was not at work yet. Had he been there, he would have ended my life with strangulation, suffocation, or leaving me there to die. Instead, a nurse called an ambulance, and I was rushed to a hospital. Doctors did not expect me to live. I did. I was later diagnosed with cerebral palsy, which was caused by a lack of oxygen to my brain while surviving an abortion. I was never supposed to hold up my head or walk. I do. And cerebral palsy, ladies and gentlemen, is a tremendous gift to me. I was eventually placed in foster care and later adopted. And hear me clearly, I forgive my biological mother. Within the first year after my birth, I was used as an expert witness in a case where an abortionist had been caught strangling a child to death after being born alive. Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, said the following: "The most merciful thing that a large family does to one of its infant members is to kill it." Planned Parenthood is not ashamed of what they have done or continue to do, but we will have to give an account as a nation before God for our apathy and for the murder of over 50 million children in the womb. Every time we falter in courage as individuals and fail to confront this evil, I wonder how many lives have been lost in our silence while we make sure we are lauded among men. And that we don't offend anyone. How many children have died and been dismembered and their parts sold for our ego, our convenience, and our promiscuity? How many Lamborghinis were purchased with the blood of innocent children? The blood that cries to the Lord from the ground, like that of the blood of Abel. Not one of them, ladies and gentlemen, is forgotten by him. I would ask Planned Parenthood the following questions. 38 years later, I would ask them these questions. If abortion is about women's rights, then what were mine? You continuously use the argument, if the baby is disabled, we need to terminate the pregnancy, as if you can determine the quality of someone's life. Is my life less valuable due to my cerebral palsy? You have failed in your arrogance and greed to see one thing. It is often from the weakest among us that we learn wisdom. Something sorely lacking in our nation today, and it is both our folly and our shame that blinds us to the beauty of adversity. Planned Parenthood uses deception, the manipulation of language, and slogans such as "a woman's right to choose" to achieve their monetary aims. I will illustrate how well they employ this technique with the following quote: "The receptivity of the masses is very limited. Their intelligence is small, but their power of forgetting is enormous. In consequence of these facts, all effective propaganda must be limited to a very few points and must harp on these in slogans until the last member of the public understands what you want him to understand by your slogan." Adolf Hitler. We often hear that if Planned Parenthood were to be defunded, there would be a health crisis among women without the services they provide. This is absolutely false. Pregnancy resource centers are located nationwide as an option for the woman in crisis. All of their services are free and confidential. They can be reached by texting helpline to 313131. There is access to vital exams for women other than Planned Parenthood. We are not a nation without options. Planned Parenthood receives $500 million of taxpayer money a year to primarily destroy and dismember babies. Do not tell me these are not children. A heartbeat proves that. So does 40 ultrasounds, so do I. And so does the fact that they are selling human organs for profit. Do not tell me this is only a women's issue. It takes both a man and a woman to create a child. And to that point, I wish to speak to the men listening to me. You are made for greatness. You were born to defend women and children, not to use and abandon us, nor sit idly by while you know we are being harmed, and I am asking you to be brave.
Hi, Mommy. Let me introduce myself. I am 3'4", 7" long. I have all of my organs, and my heart started beating today. I am alive. I love the feeling of your heartbeat. Every beat wants to make me dance and lift my arms and legs. I like it here inside you. Mommy, today I learned to suck my thumb. If you can see me, you can definitely tell that I was a baby. I'm very cute. I'm not big enough to survive outside my home. That's okay. I feel safe in here. It's so nice and warm. I may decide never to leave. I look forward to our first hug. You know what, Mommy? I'm a girl. I hope that makes you happy. I always want to make you happy. I started hearing today. You sound so sad. I don't like it when you're sad. It makes me sad too. I cry with you even though you can't hear me. To cheer you up today, I have to share a secret with you. My favorite lullaby is the sound of your heartbeat. I know it's mushy, but I look forward to holding your hand. I love you. Mommy, my hair is starting to grow. It's very short and fine. I'll have a lot of it. I spend a lot of time exercising. I can move my head and wiggle my fingers and wiggle my toes. I stretch my arms and legs. My favorite is the kick, then slide back to the bottom. I would really enjoy kissing your cheek right now. You went to the doctor today. He lied to you. He called me a blob of cells and said I was not a baby. I am alive. I am a baby. Mommy, you're a baby. I think and feel. Mommy, what is an abortion? It doesn't matter. We're having too much fun. This journey will never end. I am the pea under pod. I'll imagine seeing your face in my dreams tonight. Sleep tight. I can hear the doctor again. I don't like him. He seems cold and heartless. He definitely doesn't have your sense of humor. That's new. What is that? Something is poking into my home. The doctor calls it a needle. Mommy, what is that? It burns. Please make him stop. I can't get away from it. It hurts. Mommy, don't you want me? Please help me.
Remember those walls I built? Baby, they're tumbling down. They didn't even put up a fight. They didn't even make a sound. I found a way to let you in, but I never really had a doubt. Standing in the light of your halo, I've got my angel now. It's like I've been awakened. Every ooh you had me breaking. It's the risk that I'm taking. I ain't never gonna shut you out. Everywhere I'm looking now, I'm surrounded by your embrace. Baby, I could see your halo. You know you're my saving grace. Everything I need and more, it's written all over your face. Baby, I could see your halo. I pray it won't fade away. I could see your halo. Hit me like a ray of sun, burning through the darkest night. You're the only one that I want. Think I'm addicted to your light. I swore I'll never fall again, but this don't even feel like falling. Gravity can't forget to pull me back to the ground again. It's like I've been awakened. Every rule that I'm breaking, it's the risk that I'm taking. I ain't never gonna shut you out. Everywhere I'm looking now, I'm surrounded by your embrace. Baby, I can see your halo. You know you're my saving grace. Everything I need and more, it's written all over your face. Baby, I can feel your halo. I pray it won't fade away. I can see your halo. I can see your halo, halo, halo. Halo, halo, halo. Halo, halo, halo. I can see your halo, halo, halo. Halo, halo, halo. Halo, halo, halo. I can see your halo, halo, halo. Halo, halo, halo. Halo, halo, halo.
I was totally incapacitated. I can't reiterate this enough. I thought I was given pain medicine, but I was clearly sedated. And I was throwing up, and she sat me down in this chair. She put my arm out on like one of those fold down kind of arm rests that was going across this way. And after I threw up, you know, she said, "Okay, honey, we're gonna help you out." And I said, no, I want to go. I'm not doing this. And, you know, it was slurred, but, you know, this was the first time it was slurred. Every other time it was very clear. And she said, "Okay, honey, we're going to help you." And she just kind of brushed it off, and she put an IV in my arm. And that was very unsettling. I was panicking. My heart rate was through the roof. Like, I was scared. I didn't know what to do, and I threw up again. The next thing I knew, I honestly, like, I blacked out. The next thing that I knew, I was laying down. I was in the same room, I think. I don't remember moving or anything, so I'm pretty sure I was in the same room. So I blacked out, just kind of like you would if you were really drunk. You go from one scenario to the next. You don't remember anything. I don't know if I was involved with it or if I was moved, but I blacked out. And all of a sudden I'm laying down on what feels like a slanted table. I feel slanted because of the angle where I can see the lights and where I can see in front of me. And so I'm on this table, and everything is just like when you're really, really drunk. I don't remember much about what I saw around me. I don't remember much about how I was feeling, but I just like came to for a second. I remember seeing, you know, the fluorescence on the roof, I think, And then I remember seeing in front of me, and I remember seeing that my legs were in stirrups. And, you know, this happened so fast, and I was so out of it, but my legs were in stirrups, and I remember hearing a sound that I cannot unhear. I remember there was a team in the room. Sorry, this is so hard. Yeah, so there was a team in the room, and then I saw something that I cannot unsee, you know? And it was seriously such a quick second where I came to, but I knew what was happening. And it was, you know, it was so much. So between what I heard and what I saw, and what I kind of felt, it was just too much. And so I blacked back out after I kind of let out a little tiny scream. Like, it wasn't a full scream, it was just like the shock and the realization of whoa, this is what's happening right now. And then it was just too much, and I blacked out. And next thing I know, I have a doctor or a nurse, I'm not sure, shaking me, trying to help me sit up and wake up.
Wow. What an amazing event. What an amazing showing for life. Thank you all for being here. America's story is an incredible story. It's the story of a shining ideal pursued over the centuries, extended to the full range and scope of humanity. America was founded on the promise of God-given rights, chief among them the rights to life and liberty. Now, while America may have imperfectly fulfilled that promise, we always move forward toward the perfection of that promise. Over time, those unjustly omitted from the founding bargain were admitted and embraced. The American family grew. Only one group was left behind. That group had once been the most prized possession of a great and moral people, its children. The souls entrusted to us by the Creator, given to us with care and love. We built the country for our children. We built our lives for our children. And then something happened. We, as a country, decided to erase them. We decided that the present was more important than the future. We decided that convenience was more important than basic decency. We decided that we could safely blot out millions of souls who could not protect themselves, still forever, voices that could not speak. We dehumanized the most human, the most innocent among us. We lied to ourselves. And then we built walls around that lie. We lied about the science. We falsified anti-scientific arguments about the origin of life. We pretended that human beings were not actually human beings. We pretended that human beings with DNA different from their fathers and their mothers, human beings producing their own red blood cells by 12 weeks, their own fingerprints by week 8, their own developing eyes, legs, and hands by week 5, their own forming nervous systems by week 3. We pretended that these were not human beings, human lives at all, but disposable balls of meat. We fought to avoid looking directly at the ugly truth of what we had done. We created euphemisms: termination of pregnancy, abortion, choice. What we were really engaging in was the mass killing of the unborn, of course. Millions of children who would never be held, who would never open their eyes, who would never see the sun rise, who would never become parents and then grandparents. The dismemberment of babies in the womb, the torture of tiny bodies. And we told ourselves that we were virtuous for our lie. We reversed good and evil. We told ourselves that the killing had to continue, because if it didn't, we'd be disadvantaging women or raising crime rates or imposing economic hardship. We told young women that abortion wasn't merely a choice, it was a valuable, worthwhile choice. We told them to shout their abortion, to be proud of participating in the killing of the unborn. We excised those who stood for life. Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York said just a few years ago that those who are right to life, quote, have no place in the state of New York. Just this week, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said that pro-lifers were not in line with, quote, where we are as a society. Well, you know what? Maybe they're right. Maybe we today here are not in line with society. We do live in a time when the Democratic Party has embraced abortion as a sacrament. And by the way, a time when many in the Republican Party spent years pledging to defund Planned Parenthood and then didn't do it when they were given the power to do so. We live in a time when pro-life nations around the world are loosening their own restrictions on the killing of the unborn. So perhaps we are out of line with the rest of society. To which I say, good. So were the abolitionists. So were the civil rights marchers. So were the martyrs in Rome and the Jews in Egypt. Righteousness doesn't have to be popular. It just has to be righteous. And so we march. We march for those who can't. The media will ignore us because they always do. They'll cover other marches, you know, the 5 people who show up tomorrow. They'll cover the marches they prefer politically. They bet that the tens of thousands of us who brave the cold every year to stand here with the souls of the future America will be forgotten. We will not be forgotten. Our children, slaughtered over the decades, remember. They look at us from above, and they know that they meant something, that they do mean something, so long as we keep them in our minds and in our hearts. Our children standing here with us, the ones who are here today, they will remember too. They will remember, and they will march until they no longer have to march. Our children yet unborn will remember, and they will thank us in their prayers. Thank you so much.
Cannot speak when I am afraid. You can feel a silent cry. My eyes have not yet seen the colors of this world. What you do to me shows me death or life. Your choice is all I have. Your voice my only chance. Please keep me. I am alive. My heart is beating. Innocent life. Small inside I hide. I need you all the time. Someday I'll grow up just because of you. Who cared enough to love? Your choice is all I have. Your voice my only chance. Please keep me. My life here is at your mercy. Don't you see? I am unborn, my entire life ahead of me. Little unnoticed, please don't let me stay unnoticed for too long. God makes no mistakes. Both you and I are wonderfully, fearfully made. Your choice is all I have. Your voice my only chance. Please
And that's exactly what I witnessed in 2009, participating in an ultrasound-guided abortion procedure. Most of you probably know my story. I can talk to you about the abortion clinic imposing abortion quotas. Well, some of you are looking like you don't know what I'm talking about, so okay, I'll just go ahead and say, in 2009, things had started changing for me. In 2009, we were building the largest, it's operating now, the largest abortion facility in the Western Hemisphere in Houston, Texas. And I had an office in that building that was going to be opened. And I found out in January that we were going to be performing abortions in the 3rd trimester. And that was a problem for me because of my strict morals. But that was a problem for me because I believed that, you know, if a baby could survive on its own outside of the womb, then certainly that was not okay to take its life. It was viability for me. And one day I was reading a very scientific article in People magazine, and I learned about this baby who stopped growing at 20 weeks and 6 days, and she was born and she was healthy, and now she's like 12 years old, or I don't know. But anyway, and I thought, okay, well, now I've got to move my viability line back, right? Because it was at 24 weeks, and now it's at 20 weeks and 6 days. And in January, they announced to us we were going to be doing abortions in the 3rd trimester, and that was problematic for me. And I think that was the first time I ever came home. I came home from that meeting. I think it was the first time I ever looked at my husband and said, I'm not sure that I'm going to be retiring with Planned Parenthood, because that was my goal. That's what I wanted. And you know what they called those of us that were on the retirement plan? Lifers. They probably changed the name now, but anyway. So that's what I thought I was going to do. And then April of 2009, I was awarded Planned Parenthood's Employee of the Year for 2008. And that was really exciting for me. I know you're all very proud of me. Thank you. And I got to go to their annual fundraiser, and I got to sit at the table with Hillary Clinton. Don't be jealous. And we had a very intimate conversation, me, Hillary, and 10 Secret Servicemen. And so that was good. So, you know, then I was kind of like, all right, well, you know, I was disappointed in January to find out we were going to be doing 3rd trimester abortion, but okay, this was fun, you know, and so maybe I can just keep it up. You know, I can just keep doing this. And then August of 2009, I had a meeting with my supervisor, and we were going over my budget for the upcoming fiscal year. And she told me that that they were imposing an abortion clinic quota, and by the way, we were going to be expected to double the amount of abortions that we had provided the previous year. And that didn't make sense to me, because at Planned Parenthood, we are about preventing the need for abortion. We are about reducing the number of abortions. So why in the world would we be doubling this abortion quota? It doesn't make any sense. So I said something to my supervisor, and she looked at me and she laughed. And she said, why would we reduce the abortion number, Abby? That's how we make our money. And I thought, well, okay, this is an interesting turn of events for me. I don't know where I'm going to go from here, but I've been thinking about it for about a month. And September of 2009, we had a visiting physician come in from out of town, and he had a private practice abortion facility in Austin. And he was explaining to me one time at the clinic that inside of his own private practice abortion facility that he used an ultrasound, because he was explaining, shockingly enough, that it's actually safer if a doctor can see what he's doing while he's performing surgery. And I'd never thought about this. I just want to make it clear, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I'm not even a medical assistant. I have no medical authority or education. I'm a licensed therapist. So if you're having a crummy day, we can talk about it, but if you need any sort of medical procedure, I'm really not your gal. But inside of the abortion industry, they don't care. You just have to be willing and sit through an in-house training session, and then they set you loose to perform invasive medical procedures on women. And I had gone through that training. So the only thing I knew about abortion was what Planned Parenthood had told me. I only knew their protocols. Me, as a non-medical staff person and the director of that clinic, supervised doctors. I supervised nurses. That doesn't even make sense. But, you know, they don't care about you being medically certified. They just need you to follow a protocol. And really, if you are medically certified and you're running a clinic, you may start having questions, and they don't want that. Just do what you're told, read the protocol, follow the procedure. And so I didn't even know that they did abortions using ultrasound guidance. That was totally new to me. He told me that, you know, Planned Parenthood didn't do it because it takes a little bit of extra time when you're using an ultrasound during the abortion. Our goal at Planned Parenthood was to get a woman on the table and off the table in 5 minutes. And so to introduce an ultrasound during that would take an extra, 3 to 5 minutes. And, we were trying to do 30 to 50 abortions a day. So, you just don't have that extra 3 to 5 minutes per patient. But this doctor told me that it would be interesting for me to see it. It would be a good learning opportunity, educational opportunity for me. And so he said if time permitted that he would show me what this looked like. And that time did come, and I was asked to come into the room. And my job during the abortion was to hold the ultrasound probe on the woman's abdomen so the doctor could, in his words, visualize his target. Again, not medically certified, but I'm doing an ultrasound. I had done them lots of times. So doing ultrasound, we do the measurement, 13 weeks gestation. Now at 13 weeks, are there arms and legs? Yes. Fingers and toes? Yes. Heartbeat? Yes. Brain waves? Yes. Internal organs? Yeah, everything's there. Outside the womb, the baby's about this big. And we can even tell if it's a boy or a girl at that point. Now, I knew that. I knew what the aftermath of abortion looked like because I had been a POC technician. What does POC stand for? Products of conception. You guys are so smart. What is that? That's the baby, right? You can say baby inside of the abortion clinic, so we said POC or POC, or if the staff was feeling funny, they said it stood for pieces of children. And inside of every abortion clinic across the country, there is someone tasked to be the POC technician. And our job is to take everything that's suctioned out of the uterus, dump it into a glass baking dish, reassemble the parts to ensure that we got everything during the abortion. I did that. I can't really explain to you how I was able to do that job and not be bothered. I mean, I have no explanation for it except to say that when you are living in that sort of sin, when you are experiencing that sort of evil, see, the evil of abortion, it's actually very tangible. See, I could see that evil when I piece those parts back together, right? I could feel it when I would manipulate the parts of those babies. Abortion has a very distinct smell. I could smell it. And when evil that real infiltrates your heart and your head, the only thing I can say is that it can literally blind you to the truth that's right in front of you. And so I was standing there looking at the ultrasound and feeling a little nervous because I didn't know what I was going to see, but I knew one thing was for sure, and that was that this baby, this fetus, whatever, was not going to feel anything. Now, how did I know that? Because Planned Parenthood sent me a memo about it. And the memo was entitled Answers to Tough Questions. The most frequently asked question I got from women seeking an abortion was, will my baby feel this? And Planned Parenthood knew that we had to have a very clever answer. And our answer was no, the fetus has no sensory development or does not feel anything for 28 weeks. Now, do you believe that? No. Well, I did. I knew better. I knew it was a lie. I mean, I had to believe the lie because the truth was really inconvenient for me. You know why 28 weeks? Because Planned Parenthood doesn't do abortions past 28 weeks. They just picked a number that would be financially smart for them. And so I was standing there, I was reminding myself, I was reciting the scripted answer over and over again in my head, and I watched as the cannula, the suction tube, the suction wasn't turned on yet. I watched it go into the woman's uterus, and I watched it go right up next to the side of this little boy, and as it touched his side, he jumped. And he began flailing his arms and legs as if he was trying to move away from the abortion instrument, but there was nowhere for him to go. And the doctor asked the technician to turn on the suction machine, and he said, "Beam me up, Scotty." And the suction was turned on, and I guess people think that what I saw next was the worst part, and it was bad. What I saw next was bad. I saw pieces of this child being suctioned into the tube one at a time. And you know how on an x-ray, bones are white? You know, like cartilage is white on an x-ray? Well, the very last thing I saw on that ultrasound screen was this little white, perfectly formed backbone. And I saw it twirling around inside the mother's womb, and then it finally went into the tube, and the screen was just black. And I knew that the abortion was complete. Abortion is the only procedure I can think of where its success is determined by taking the life of another person.
We don't offer any prenatal care. We don't offer prenatal care at Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood offers abortion, so they don't offer prenatal care.
Prenatal care. These are the kinds of services that folks depend on Planned Parenthood for.
And a president who will fight for prenatal care.
Prenatal care. And that is what we want to focus on. That is what is so vital.
Thank you for calling Planned Parenthood. My name's how can I assist you today?
Hi, I was hoping to make an appointment for prenatal care.
For what type of service?
Prenatal care, pregnancy care.
We don't have prenatal care here. Planned Parenthood offers abortion, so they don't offer prenatal care.
Okay, just abortions.
Yeah. Unfortunately, no. We wouldn't provide any type of prenatal services here at Planned Parenthood. We're not a prenatal care provider. No Planned Parenthood does prenatal care. We don't offer prenatal care at Planned Parenthood. We specialize in abortions. You know, that's what our ultrasounds are for, to see how far along the patient is.
Planned Parenthood, we do birth control, you know, things like that, termination. We check for STI, but we don't do prenatal.
We tell you you're pregnant, and we also let Planned Parenthood to do the abortions.
Okay.
So we don't do any prenatal services
No
here.
prenatal.
No, we don't do prenatal services. I mean, it's called Planned Parenthood. I know it's kind of deceiving.
Do you have OBGYNs here?
We do not, no.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
Which is a deceptive name, right? I think the same thing.
Or, you know, if you were looking into termination options, we can do that as well.
Did you know that Planned Parenthood can take care of all your reproductive health needs? Whether it's an annual exam, pregnancy testing and counseling, prenatal care, we are here for you with high-quality, low-cost services.
Thank you for holding. This is. How can I help you?
Hi.
I was wondering if you guys offer prenatal care?
No, we don't. Not at the moment. Neither our Hampton or Richmond office does. We don't offer any prenatal care.
Is there any other clinic you can refer me to?
I don't know of anything. I would look around on the internet.
You can try CareNet. I think they do prenatal care.
CareNet?
It's the first building on this strip here.
We only offer family planning services and abortion services.
Not at all at Planned Parenthood.
Okay, so not at any Planned Parenthood. They don't have prenatal
Correct.
care.
No, see, we don't see pregnant women as a way of giving prenatal care.
Okay.
We see pregnant women, if they are considering other options.
Like what other options? Like would you see the doctor for?
At this location?
Yes.
So at this location, you guys do medication abortion?
Medication abortion.
What pregnancy services do you offer?
We only offer termination services.
We actually don't offer prenatal services. We're not licensed to do so in Oregon or Washington.
Do any of the Planned Parenthoods?
No, we do not offer any prenatal care.
Number 7018, Roe against Wade.
You would agree, I suppose, that one of the important factors that has to be considered in this case is what rights, if any, does the unborn fetus have?
That's correct.
And the basic constitutional question initially is whether or not an unborn fetus is a person, isn't it? It's critical to this case.
Yes, sir, it is.
If it were established that an unborn fetus is a person within the protection of the 14th Amendment, you would have almost an impossible case here.
I would have a very difficult case.
Certainly would.
In a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court today legalized abortions. The majority in cases from Texas and Georgia said that the decision to end a pregnancy during the first 3 months belongs to the woman and her doctor, not the government. Thus, the anti-abortion laws of 46 states were rendered unconstitutional.
The Supreme Court today ruled that abortion is completely a private matter to be decided by mother and doctor in the first 3 months of pregnancy. The 7-2 ruling to that effect will probably result in a drastic overhaul of state laws on abortion.
I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world. Disease from their parents that have no chance in the world to be a human being, practically. Delinquents, prisoners, all sorts of things just marked when they're born. That, to me, is the greatest sin that people can commit.
I'm Norma McCorvey, the former Jane Roe of the Roe v. Wade decision that brought legal child killing to America. I was persuaded by feminist attorneys to lie, to say that I'd been raped and I needed an abortion. It was all a lie. Since then, over 50 million babies have been murdered. I will take this burden to my grave. Please don't follow my mistakes.
A North Texas doctor who performs abortions is back in the spotlight this midday. His clinic shut down a while ago, but now he's reopened a surgery center.
He is now the only doctor in the area who will perform late-term abortions. That's for women who are up to 6 months pregnant. It's no surprise that he's been the target of protests, but as KVUE's Jim Douglas shows us, there is a surprise in the doctor's story.
Am I killing? Yes, I am. I know that.
It's a jarring admission from anyone, especially from a doctor, and perhaps even more so from this doctor.
I'm an ordained Baptist minister.
President Obama supports the brutal practice of partial birth abortion, where a baby is delivered up to the neck, and this living, kicking, half-born baby then has a pair of scissors jammed into the back of their skull, and the baby's brains are sucked out.
Well, this issue came up at the state level, and I voted no on the late-term abortion ban.
But that's just the beginning of the extremism of Barack Obama. He voted 3 times against the Born Alive Infant Protection Act, leaving born babies alone to die. Does anyone really believe we should abandon babies in a utility room to die? The answer is yes. His name, Barack Obama.
Barack Obama defended infanticide, the killing of fully born infants who had survived a failed abortion attempt and were then left for hours in soiled linen baskets to die. Jill Stanek and others blew the whistle on this.
It's just really hard for me to even ask you this question because I'm almost in disbelief. If a baby is born on a table as a result of a botched abortion, what would Planned Parenthood want to have happen to that child that's struggling for life?
We believe that any decision that's made should be left up to the woman, her family, and the physician.
What happens in a situation where a baby is alive, breathing on a table, moving? What do your physicians do at that point?
I do not have that information. I am not a physician. I'm not an abortion provider. So I do not have that information.
They'll just suction the baby, and it's possible that there may be movement as they're taking out the fetus.
Like movement after?
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens?
Well, then usually it stops on its own.
Okay. So, if they use the
Jackson?
No, what did you say, suction?
Uh-huh.
So if they use the suction, then there's possible movement when it comes out.
Yeah, and sometimes after...
Is it alive or?
Sometimes they are, yeah. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it will come out whole, because they use suction, plus they use instruments, and sometimes the fetuses don't come out, that's not complete.
Okay.
So,
but if it does come out whole,
mm-hmm.
I mean, will they resuscitate it? Like, will I have to take care of it?
Mm-mm.
Okay. If that does happen, like if they do it, if I were to choose to do it that way, like, you would just let it go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you would just let it die on its own
mm-hmm.
if it was whole and
mm-hmm.
breathing. Yes?
They do not resuscitate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just let it die on its own and,
mm-hmm.
okay.
Technically, legally we would be obligated to help it, to survive, but, it probably wouldn't. It's all in how vigorously you do things to help a fetus survive at this point. Obviously, you're here for a certain procedure, and if your pregnancy were, let's say you went into labor, the membranes ruptured, and you delivered before we got to the termination part of the procedure here, then we would do things, we would not help it.
Okay.
Let's say we wouldn't intubate.
Okay.
Okay.
So you would make sure.
Yeah, we wouldn't do any extra. It's like it would be a person that would be a terminal person in the hospital. Let's say that had cancer. You wouldn't do any extra procedures to help that person survive. that had like do not resuscitate orders. Okay. You know, we would do the same things here.
You stated that that a baby born on a table as a result of a botched abortion, that decision should be left to the doctor and the family. Is that what you're saying?
That decision should be between the patient and the healthcare provider.
I think that at that point, the patient would be the child struggling on a table. Wouldn't you agree?
That's a very good question. I really don't know how to answer that. I think
in my heart and my mind, you know, life begins when the mother thinks it begins, not when anybody else thinks it begins. For some women, it's before they conceive. For some women, it's never. Even after they deliver, it's still a problem, not a baby.
Like, is it already fully
It's not
developed?
fully developed. It doesn't even look like a baby yet.
It doesn't?
Technically, it has its organs, it has parts, like we all have parts, but it's not done.
So, like, does it have a face or like all of that stuff? Or?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it has what's developing too.
Right. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want you to torture yourself. Yeah, we induce a demise, intrauterine demise.
What does demise mean?
Death. We use a
Suction.
combination of suction and then real instruments to literally go in and grab and pull pieces out.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe it's usually, that's a little more graphic than I usually describe it.
So I'll have a dead baby in me? Will it start to decay or something?
So it's like putting meat in a crock pot. Okay, it doesn't get broke, but it gets softer. It doesn't get infected or.
Okay, so the dead baby in me is like meat in a crock pot.
Pretty much, yeah, kind of much.
All right, all right.
Slow cooker.
To insert the injection, it's going straight into the sac and into the pregnancy. Okay, it's bottom down. It'll insert through the baby's bottom. Okay.
Okay,
if
so
it's head down, it'll insert through the head, the cranium.
And then it's just, I mean, like any shot, you know, like a flu
Okay.
shot or a vaccine, really.
Just like a flu shot or vaccine, okay.
Yeah, and it's not like you and I, where when we get a flu shot, we're kind of, ooh, not that experience
Yeah.
of anxiety and suffering is not, it's not capable of.
Okay.
And so that, I think, helps us all to feel more comfortable with this.
Make sure women have access to quality, affordable health care, and as long as we've got to fight to protect a woman's right to make her own choices about her own health, I want you to know that you've also got a president who's going to be right there with you, fighting every step of the way. Thank you, Planned Parenthood. God bless you. God bless America.
I admire Margaret Sanger enormously. Her courage, her tenacity, her vision. Another of my great friends, Ellen Chesler, is here, who wrote a magnificent biography of Margaret Sanger called Woman of Valor.
Your remarks last month when you called Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, a person whom you enormously admire, were stunning to me. Margaret Sanger clearly embraced bigotry and racism. She advocated for the elimination of the disabled, the downtrodden, and the black child. In one of her writings, she said, "Today, eugenics is suggested by the most diverse minds as the most adequate and thorough avenue to the solution of racial, political, and social problems."
Sanger's admiration for the eugenics programs of Nazi Germany were well known at the time. In 1933, the Birth Control Review published Eugenic Sterilization, an Urgent Need, by Ernst Rudin, who was Hitler's director of genetic sterilization and the founder of the Nazi Society for Racial Hygiene. In her praise for the eugenics programs in Germany, Sanger called for the implementation of such programs in the United States specifically targeting African Americans. The following editorial was published in the 1932 issue of the Birth Control Review.
The Negro problem is one of the most complicated and important confronting America. Whatever the ultimate answer may be, such an attitude brings to light the function of birth control as a necessary agency in its solution. The present submerged condition of the Negro is due in large part to the high fertility of the race under disastrously adverse circumstances. Thus, the question arises, to what extent birth control has had a eugenic effect upon the Negro race?
If any question should remain about Sanger's racist agenda, a 1939 letter she wrote to Dr. Clarence Gamble should remove all doubt.
We should hire 3 or 4 colored ministers, preferably with social service backgrounds and with engaging personalities. The most successful educational approach to the Negro is through a religious appeal. We don't want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. And the minister is a man who can straighten out that idea if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members.
Good afternoon, this is Autumn.
Hello, Autumn. I'm interested in making a donation today.
Fantastic.
What about abortions for the underprivileged minority groups? I want to specify that abortion to help a minority group. Would that be possible? Like the black community, for example?
Certainly.
Okay. So the abortion could be, I could give money specifically for a black baby. That'd be the purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. If you wanted to designate that you wanted your gift to be used to help an African American woman in need, then we would certainly make sure that that gift was earmarked specifically for that purpose.
Great, because I really face trouble with affirmative action, and I don't want my kids being disadvantaged, against black kids. I just had a baby. I want to put it in his name, so that's definitely possible.
Oh, always.
And we just think, the less black kids out there, the better.
Understandable. All right. Excuse my hesitation. This is the first time I've had a donor call and make this kind of request, so I'm excited, and I want to make sure I don't leave anything out. Hello, this is Irene.
Hi, I'm interested in making a donation. I'd like to fund one abortion.
Okay.
I was wondering if that would be possible.
Yes, we can definitely put that.
Can I make the donation specifically for a minority group?
Like a specific group of color, or like a group of...
I want the abortion to be for an African American baby.
Okay.
And I was wondering if that could be possible.
The exact amount we charge right now is $450 for an abortion.
Okay, $450.
And we can definitely designate it for an African American.
Wonderful. If I wanted to help fund multiple abortions, could you also specify that this could be done for a specific group? Great. Well, I'm really excited, because I really face trouble with affirmative action. And I don't want my kids to be disadvantaged, against blacks in college, and the less blacks out there, the better. So.
Yeah, it's a strange time for sure. So, okay.
Thank you so much, and you'll receive the check in a few days.
Hello, this is Sue. May I help you?
Hi, Sue. I'm interested in making a donation.
Great.
So, would it be possible for me to donate that money specifically for these minority groups so that they could have access to abortions?
Yes, it would be.
Wonderful. And could I specify that abortion be done, or those abortions be done for a particular minority group, or how does that work?
If you wish, you can.
Okay. So, for example, the black community in Tulsa, would it be possible to give the money specifically for that?
You sure can.
Wonderful. Great. The abortions will be done specifically for the black community abortions.
I will mark it in such a way that definitely it will.
On a black baby?
Yes.
Thank you. Great.
Okay.
So can I give you my credit card number?
Yes. Planned Parenthood Administration, this is Lisa.
And who am I speaking with now?
My name is Lisa Hutton.
Lisa Hutton, what's your position?
Administrative assistant.
Okay. When I underwrite abortion, does that apply to minorities too?
If you specifically wanted to underwrite an abortion for a minority person, you can target it that way. You can specify that that's how you want it spent.
Okay, yeah, because there's definitely way too many black people in Ohio, so I'm just trying to do my part.
Okay, whatever.
Well, blacks especially need abortions too, so that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, for whatever reason, we'll accept the money.
When I say believe, I don't mean to believe in committing sin. Do you believe there is such a thing as sin?
Well, I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world that have disease from their parents, that have no chance in the world to be a human being, practically. Delinquents, prisoners, all sorts of things just marked when they're born. That, to me, is the greatest sin that people can commit.
You know, I have to confess to you, I have a hard time putting, that's a very clever statement, that just because you're for abortion doesn't mean you're against babies. I wonder if the 4,500 babies who are aborted every day would buy that rhetoric.
There's definitely there's something that we disagree on that is at a very deep level, and I don't want to pretend like I'm going to be able to convince you because I understand your.
I understand. What do you think it is inside of a woman before she gives birth to it?
I think it's a fetus.
It's not a human being.
It is a fetus.
So it takes what to become a human being?
To be born.
So it's a matter of location.
I think it's a matter of being able to. I really don't want to get into the issue of defining life. I'm not exactly 100% on everything about this.
It's all right. I'm not going to club you with the microphone. Okay, so you think that if the baby moves from inside to outside, that makes it a baby?
I think that when it lives on its own, yes.
If somebody needs, say, a heart monitor, or let's say a kidney monitoring, a dialysis machine to stay alive, would that mean that they're not human because they rely on something?
It doesn't mean they're not human, sir. I know you're trying to get the gotcha questions on this, and like I said, there's a fundamental difference that we have on this, and I respect that. Like, it's just that in some instances, I believe that people should have a choice on it, and I believe that as a man, it's not really my call. Like, I want a woman to be able to have the best medical care, have the best decision, and I want her for it to be the doctor and her that decides.
So as a man, I'm not able to make any sort of moral judgment?
No, sir. And if you and your significant other, you and your wife, it's definitely something you decide on together. But I think it's not the government.
You don't think the government should be imposing values?
I don't think the government should be taking away rights from women.
So you think it's a right to end the life of your child?
I think that Roe v. It is not a child yet. I think it's a fetus, and I think Roe v. Wade has confirmed that it is a right. Yes.
All right. So we really keep coming back to that nagging issue. What is it that makes that child a baby outside, but inside it's not?
Right. And sir, and that is definitely a very key issue. I understand you come from it from your faith background, from any sort of background.
Actually, I come from that from logic.
Okay, you can call it as you wish, sir, and it's fine. Some people disagree on it. The thing is that if you're talking about presidential elections, things like that, I don't even think it's even a major issue to be concerned about.
It is if you're one of those 4,500 babies. All right, let me just ask you one last question. I won't harangue you. If that baby and that thing inside, all right, would you be at least willing to say we're not sure if it's a human being as opposed to just a blob of tissue? Is it possible that you could be wrong on this issue?
I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm 100% certain on everything in the world.
So if that's the case, if it could actually be a human being...
It will be a human being eventually. That's
okay, so either way, you're impeding the life of a human being because it will be. So it's just a matter of time.
Sir, I believe that women should have a right to choose. I believe that
a right to choose to potentially put an end to the life of their own child.
Sir, I believe that we should be working as best we can to reduce abortion. That's
just hasn't happened though.
I know, but there are ways to go about it. But increased contraception access, which I don't know if you agree with that or not either. But that is one way to get around it.
Right. So the issue, however, though, of terminating the life of a baby, you should think that an individual should have the right. Now, so you don't think it's a moral issue?
I think it's a moral decision to be made between a woman and her doctor.
So you're okay with the government imposing some sort of moral values on people, correct? I trust you are. You think it's wrong to rape or to beat somebody up.
Correct. Sir, I think we're good here.
All right.
I hope
Imagine if you could change society's stance on abortion.
How do you feel about the issue of abortion?
I think in some situations it can be necessary.
So have you just changed your mind about abortion?
Yeah.
Would you ever vote for someone who is for the killing of children in the womb?
No.
I believe in someone's right to choose.
You're going to change your stance on it?
Yeah, it's definitely making me think, yeah.
I feel like it's more of a choice. Yeah, when you put it that way, it does change your mind.
Would you vote for someone who is pro-abortion?
Yeah.
So have you just changed your mind about abortion?
Yes, I have. I believe that people have the right to choose.
So have you just changed your mind about abortion?
Yes, I've just changed my mind about abortion.
So you're going to vote differently in future?
Yeah.
You mean that?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's necessary if you're in the situation where you can't support a child.
So you're saying that you're changing your mind about abortion right now?
Yes. Yes.
It's a woman's right to choose, and every situation is a different situation.
So you're going to vote differently and think differently about this?
Yeah, I think I would. I think I definitely would.
I'm for abortion. It's never okay to kill a baby in the womb.
Okay, so you're going to change your mind about abortion?
Yes, I am.
You're going to vote differently in future?
Yes, vote against abortion.
Congratulations. Against all odds, you were conceived from a single cell to a fully grown baby in just 9 months. Amazing. You are a miracle, and so am I.